Hope we often get questions here at Timberdoodle about how can I afford your curriculum? Do you offer payment plans? Are there ways to cut costs? And then, of course, we've covered how to cut costs in another previous video. But why are people concerned about payment plans? What is the driving issue here?
Well, if you think about it, families as a whole don't have to afford their whole year's worth of fuel from the get-go. We don't have to afford all your taxes from the get-go, etc. To have to afford your child's whole year of school from the get-go is kind of staggering if you've not been planning for it since they were babies. If you've not been budgeting for it, and especially if you've got multiple children, this can feel like a huge hit to your budget to all of a sudden have to afford the whole year's worth of education for your children.
Exactly, because you've been paying the taxes on the public school.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden you have to cough up something to teach your own children. Yep. This hits particularly hard if you've made that transition to homeschooling from the public school fairly recently. Yep. So if you've been planning for years, this is what you're going to do, you may have socked away the money. Yep. But if you've suddenly made that decision, it's going to hurt. So what are some of the options that we have for people?
Well, we have a couple options. We have a payment plan, basically a loan program that we work through, Klarna. And we also have PayPal. Do you want to go into the different details? Or?
Yeah, and let's back up a little bit and say, locally, if you were to send your child to a private school locally, you would be out about $4,500. And that's here in Podunk, Shelton. There's just not much here. You go a little bit further to Olympia, and costs go up another $2,000. Wow. So you, obviously, even if you choose a private school route, it's going to be expensive. Yeah. So now, dial back and look at realistically what are we looking at for Timberdoodle curriculum. And I'm just air picking a kindergarten kit, and it's about $800. So you got a couple options. How are you going to afford $800? Yeah. You've got PayPal, who, again, these are for qualifying people, but
we're presuming you as a customer qualify.
Exactly. So PayPal has a 6-month, no interest loan. So if you take that curriculum, the $800 curriculum, and you do it through PayPal, you've got 6 months to pay, and it would be about $135 a month, which is a lot more reasonable than the $800 all at once. But let's say that doesn't appeal to you. There is another financing option through Timberdoodle. Now, we are not financing it. That's not our skill level. We do curriculum. We don't do financing. But we've partnered with a finance company, Klarna, who does do the financing. And they can finance it for whatever you decide. So you're saying, I would rather pay this off not in 6 months, but in a year. Yeah. The problem with Klarna that you need to know heads up is you are going to pay interest on that versus PayPal, no interest. But with Klarna, you could set it up to pay it a year, or you could set it up to pay in 8 months, or whatever works for your family. So using the same figure of $800 for the kindergarten curriculum, and you say you set it up to pay in a year. Yep. I don't know what their interest rate is. They're going to make that decision based on your credit score. Yep. And obviously, I don't know what that's going to be. No. But if you have a great credit score, it could be as low as 5%, in which case you're paying $68 a month. Much more doable. Yep. But if you say you don't have that great a credit score, then their interest rate could be as high as 19%, which sounds staggering, but it's going to be comparable to any credit card. Yep. And even at 19%, you're paying $74 a month. Not that big a difference. Yep. So Klarna gives you the freedom to spread this out over a distance. Yep. Add more curriculum, obviously it gets more expensive, but again, this is much more doable than coughing up $1,000 right from the get-go. Yeah. So I think that covers what financing Timberdoodle has available. So Hope, do you have any other questions?
I just wanted to know on Klarna, if you're trying to make the decision between PayPal and Klarna, you can go and as you go to our checkout system, and select another option and try to go see Klarna's rates. You can go apply and they'll either tell you, yeah, we don't have any options for you if you don't qualify, or if you do qualify, here's what your rate will be. And at that point, then you can bail out and come back and say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do PayPal, or I want to find some other way to finance this.
A garage sale.
A garage sale, exactly. Or if you want to go through with it, then you just continue on.
Right, and that's a really good point, because you don't want to get sucked into something that you're saying, I can't afford this, or I don't want to make this commitment.
Yeah.
So I think that covers what Timberdoodle does. Again, we aren't financing it.
No.
We are going to a professional who finances it, and we do what we do best.
Yeah.